everybody. Welcome to the sandwich generation. That's where we are in life, aren't we? We've got our kids and our grandkids over here that we're putting through college and all that kind of thing. And then over here, we're taking care of our parents. And it can really cause some caregiver burnout. So what I want to talk about today is answering the question of why? Why is this happening now? Why did it not happen a generation ago? We didn't have assisted living. We didn't put people in assisted living. How did we survive? And how does that change now that we're having to do it? We had this ongoing garage sale that was going on. And it was my grandfather and his sister, my Aunt Lou, and their mom, and all the siblings would come in and they would drop off their things for the garage sale, and the elders of the group that weren't working, they would get to have the garage sales all the time. And it was a big family, wonderful, warm thing. And we were always up in each other's business. We were always calling each other on the phone. We got together every chance we could possibly get together. And when I look back on that, I think, so what's different with that than now, where my parents are in senior apartments? I'm working like crazy. Everyone I know is working like crazy. What happened there that's the difference? Well, the difference is a generation. A generation ago, my aunt was taking care of my great-grandmother at home. My great-grandmother was in her 90s and she didn't need a whole lot of help. She would probably be a good candidate for assisted living right now. But my aunt had already retired, because back then you retired much younger than you do now. And I had another aunt of the generation underneath. She didn't work outside the house. We had a lot of people who were at home, and we had a lot of the elder generation in our family that took care of the kids. A lot of times we would liken ourselves to the Waltons, because we, worked together as a multi-generational group. But now, in our generation we're in now, we are all in such insanely busy lives. I mean, truly, if you are stuck in this sandwich generation with me, you are probably running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to figure out, how do I run over here before they close for deliveries and still make it on time to my granddaughter's first basketball game? How do you do all that? Because we're working longer. We're doing everything longer than we did before. And people are living longer. People are retiring later. And so the stress, the incredible stress, so often I hear my mother say, gosh, you are so stressed. We never had that stress when we were your age. Yeah, we had work stress and things like that. But a generation ago, we didn't have internet. We didn't have to be stuck to our phone every minute of the day. And the stress and the pressure we have now, and the things that we're supposed to do in the same amount of time, is very different. And it has created this collision course. And, we would love to go back a generation where, you're staying at home and you have all the time in the world to take care of mama. And honestly, mama's not living forever like she did before. Do you know, a generation ago, the reason that Social Security kicked in at 65 is because countrywide, you weren't expected to live more than 2 years after that. So think about that. Whenever I started out in this business, I grew up in it, but whenever I started out as an adult working in this business, most people that were in independent living were in their 60s, maybe even their late 50s. And most people that were in assisted living, they were just ancient. They were like, deep in their 70s and into their 80s. But just in the past few years, that alone has changed. Most people right now in assisted living are deep in their 80s into their 90s. And most people in independent living are in their 70s going into their 80s, because we're healthier now. We're living longer now. We have so many medical advances that are keeping those things going. And so it's just a different world, and it's not fair to compare what happened with your parents and grandparents a generation ago with what's happening now. Another thing that happened in the last generation is they only had nursing homes, and the creepy crusty kind, as they call them, because back then a nursing home they were dark. They had dark hallways. They smelled awful. People could smoke inside of them, and that compounded the stink. And you would go into that as a child. Not me, but everyone else apparently in my generation would walk in there as a child and be terrified, because it was so scary, and people were hollering and buzzers were constantly going off. But that's not how it is now. And now we have things like independent living. Now we have things like assisted living. We even have residential care homes now where they can get a different sort of assistance if you want that really tiny, intimate environment. And I'm really sorry that we're all working now. It's always good to look back and say, gosh, I wish we could go back to those days. I wish we could go back when things were slower and gentler and all that kind of thing. But you know what? You can't ever go home. And you can't go backwards, because when you go backwards, you realize that there were a whole other set of problems there that we don't have now. And so it's just a fact of life. It's just things moving along. And there is nothing in the world wrong with going into assisted living. I'm Anne-Marie, and I'm glad you joined me today.